everyone. Welcome to Bill with Shreya. Today I'm doing a review video of all the podcasts done so far. So the idea is while you're viewing those conversations, it's difficult to distill down the core principles or core points that were raised during those conversations. I have sort of compiled all of them and brought it down for you in one single video. And so we'll go one by one, dive into every single podcast and see what are the key points that we could derive from them for real estate industry. And this podcast was done by Mrinali Mittal, who is the executive director at Trinity Infratech. And what she recommended was going through the company law for all the business owners, as she thought it is sort of a bible for all of them. And then she recommended Complementary, which is a compliance software that she uses at Trinity. Apart from that, she said that REITs, which is real estate investment trusts, are a very good instrument for investment. And although they're very old in US and highly used, but in India they're still a little new and less explored. In terms of the initiatives that the government has taken within India, the smart city initiatives, the TOD or Deen Dayal policy, she feels that that really incentivizes the developers to explore new markets and new areas for development. So that's a good thing that's happening in India right now. However, she feels that there are still gaps as far as data transparency and standardization are concerned. For example, if you look at the actual price of the land, they're not really transparently available. So, that is one of the gaps that, coming solutions or problem solvers can look at solving, because currently the industry is a little slow to adopt technology, as the operations are a little nuanced. The current softwares are, solving one single problem. They're not holistic in nature, where, a developer can go to one stop solution and get all of their concerns handled by one single software. So that's another gap that's there. In terms of a country, macroeconomically, we're making a lot of progress. Government has digitized different portals. It has authorization of documents which are done digitally. So that is pushing the private sector to take suit, but it still needs more innovation as far as the microeconomic status is concerned, specifically when it comes to real estate. In the end, she had certain tips for the property buyers, saying, okay, please learn to cut through the misinformation and learn the sort of the nuances of the real estate transactions. And as far as home buyers are concerned, one should look at the community amenities, access to education and employment, amongst other factors, while buying your dream home. So yes, that's about real estate. The first time you start building solutions, it is usually your own personal wealth that you would be using, whether it is, buying the first domain name for your website, whether it is, hiring the first employee, or, just freelancing some work. So before you really raise any money, there would be some usage of personal wealth to a certain extent. And it's possible you actually continue bootstrapping your company or solution altogether, right? So that's why it becomes super important to understand how you can create personal wealth and manage personal wealth in a very disciplined fashion. And that's where we had a podcast by Sumit Duseja, who is the co-founder and CEO of True Mind Capital. And he gave really good insights into building financial literacy, and then sort of going from there in terms of diversifying your wealth portfolio and growing it in a disciplined way. So in terms of developing that financial literacy, which is definitely not a really good focus of the educational system we have in a country, so people are not proactively looking at it. But certain resources that he recommended was the blog, by Collab Fund, and that is done by Morgan Hosen, and who is the author of Psychology of Money. So really good recommended blog by him. And then apart from that, the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, right? So that he recommended to start understanding how to, get the basics around planning or wealth planning and all of that. And then apart from that, his favorite book of all time is The Warren Buffett Way. So I think that's a go to when you start understanding a little bit about financial planning in general. He said that he really believed in the disciplined way of investing, and then having that as a behavior in your day to day life. And he felt that, SIPs are a really good way to inculcate that discipline. And altogether, apart from that, it is very important to understand your relationship with money. Different people behave in different way and have a different relationship with money. There's a differing risk appetite that they can take. Volatility has a deep connection with the kind of returns you will see, and that risk appetite directly links to the volatility that you can sort of invest in going forward. He emphasized on diversification as a whole and looking at different asset classes, primarily you look at debt, equity, real estate, gold, right? And he had an unconventional view around not having more than 25% of your asset class as real estate while you invest your portfolio of money. And of course, in terms of crypto as well, he had a different thought that since the characteristics on what drives the value of crypto are not well known, it is not a recommended asset class by him to be investing in. So yeah, I think it is very important to understand what stage or cycle of that specific asset class one is investing in. Every asset class has a cycle, and so diversifying your portfolio in a way that you are at different stages of the cycle and getting and maximizing those returns becomes super key. So overall, a very informative podcast. But then, of course, going forward, we are going to bring in more insights into how we can improve our wealth management in terms of getting that personal fund to get started with building groundbreaking solutions around this. So the next review that we're going to do is on early stage investing, and this podcast was done by Dhruv Dhanraj Bahl, who is the managing partner of Eternal Capital. It was a very fun podcast, by the way, and he told us about the importance of early stage investing. Not only that it gives good returns, but it's also something that's not really well played out so far. So definitely something to dive into if you are someone who wants to get into early stage investing. But during this podcast, he came with multiple perspectives, all from being an investor, being a founder who's looking for investment, and looking from an aspect of getting into an industry and seeing if early stage investing is something you should go for, or maybe it's something else, maybe it's a p you should approach. So all of those aspects coming together, I think we had a very holistic podcast as far as investment is considered from an early stage perspective. He really feels that there is a lot of potential in the Indian startups, and if there are good exchange programs with the US, there could be access to a global network, which would be very helpful for the Indian startups. He feels that investors and ecosystem partners highly help in getting the founders access to market insights, research, provide the testing grounds to get the product market fit, which becomes key in the product success going forward. And some of the tips for the founders he had was that, okay, always raise from the perspective of, okay, how much do I need, how much capital do I need to build this business, rather than saying, okay, let me raise first and then I'll build a business. I think that's a very different perspective and have, and he emphasized on that. Also, he said that founders should diversify their wealth because there's a lot of venture risk that goes without saying with the kind of moves they take in their career path. And also, as an investor, he feels there are different attributes as far as the founder as well as the venture is concerned. So, for the founder, he feels emotional intelligence becomes highly important. A willingness to problem solve, being able to pivot, having sort of a functional plus first design principle clarity. What if this happens, what if that happens? If a founder is able to go through those kind of questions, that is something that is positive when it comes to an investment that he's looking for when he makes those investments. So grit is another aspect, being able to grow, build teams, hire more people. And then as a venture, he feels the venture should have sort of a robust feedback system. There should be continuous improvement that is happening within the firm. Also, if there is a discipline in the capital allocation and the utilization of resources, that makes it very efficient to start with. So he feels that platforms are more likable to invest in rather than feature led products, right? So that is another thing that founders can look at when they're just starting out. So those are some aspects from the perspective of getting investment, and what kind of personal qualities as well as firm qualities or venture qualities that somebody can go with for early stage investing. So he personally doesn't believe in crypto, by the way, and he feels edtech as an industry needs transformation. It's overhyped, and there are a lot of feature led platforms. So there's more things to be done in that sector. As far as India is concerned, he feels that manufacturing or data science or anything related to that is a good sector to start working on. And as far as global solutions are concerned, fintech seems to be a very good field, specifically as we see a lot of innovation in fintech in India with UPI and all the transformation in that area. The global market definitely is craving for solutions in that sector. So that is something to look out for. As far as solutions in renewables, fleet management, EVs are concerned, they're more of PE bets, according to him, rather than early stage investment. So, because you need like 100 million on day zero to make a difference. So that's something that he sort of also made sure that he put it out there. So, all in all, a very good sort of a breakdown into how to navigate early stage investing from an investor as well as a founder perspective, and how to sort of look at the current trends and adopt them while you are looking at problems that you want to solve. So let's start with a domain specific review for electric vehicles, which is in the environment space. And as we know, it is becoming even more important in today's world to focus on environment based solutions. And EVs are considered a good alternative to the regular diesel, petrol based cars in today's world. And as we know, automobile pollution causes and contributes in a major way to the pollution that we see around ourselves, specifically in the metro cities. So we spoke to Yogiraj Gogia, who was the director of strategic partnerships at a leading battery swapping company, and he gave us various insights on how people can start looking and developing solutions for the EVs. And the first suggestion that he had was to look into data analytics as a starting point, whether it is a telematics data or the IoT based data that the cars have, whether how the driver is driving, what is the topography of the car that it has been driven in. Those kind of data points can really help in building solutions on top of it. For example, for resale of EVs, it is a good way to look at the actual value of the car rather than the residual value of the car. So valuation of car becomes super important, and that's where the data driven solutions are something that one can start looking at if they want to be looking at EV as the industry they want to build for. Apart from that, the sustainable disposal of the waste batteries is also an area and challenge in the EV industry as a whole. So that is also a gap that people can start looking at. If we look at the charging of the EV batteries, it is right now done using electricity, which is again not very sustainable because of coal burning. One of the other ways is solar charging of these electrical vehicle batteries, which might be another opportunity or area that people can start developing for. Now we'll do a review on a technology startup that is actually focused on human productivity using AI. It's called Mindclone, and we spoke with Alok Gotam, who's the CEO and founder of Mindclone.ai. And we learned a lot about just being a founder. And he recommended a book called Founders Mode by Paul Graham that he's a huge believer in. And he really focused on the aspect of increasing the world happiness index, and that's what his startup is focused on. He says that usually there are three axes to happiness. One is your spiritual aspect, one is work related aspect, and the other is the social connections aspect. And so his application really focused on the social connections aspect, as he felt that the first two were any which ways a default in a life where we are pushing to strive for success, whether it's work related, whether it's connecting to spiritual aspects in life. So all of that is significantly explored as far as happiness is concerned. Like he himself had many a times restarted his life. He dropped out of his college, he went to his MBA college after living in the cave for like 4 years. So a lot of transformations as far as his life was concerned, and that really speaks volumes about what it means to be a founder and the kind of journeys you go through to find yourself and then align yourself to a problem that you want to solve, right? So that is something that we learned from this podcast with Alok. He also focused on the importance of in-depth market research and aligning it with the user needs as well as certain measurable outcomes that we're looking for when we start exploring a problem from the very start. He also said that, okay, like as a founder, it's possible to sort of go with the flow and just be optimistic, but one should know when to continue, when to stop. And it becomes superbly important to set certain milestones and check time to time if we are meeting those milestones to take that call. Also, like the he emphasized on the importance of creating product roadmaps with future proofing. That is, for example, if a new technology like AI is coming in, how will the product sort of adopt that? How will it sort of pivot if something else happens? So I would say, I mean, this is something we learned in the MBA, was like the pestle, right? So the pestle analysis, we should actually do that while creating product roadmaps. He was also of the opinion to let machines do all the work, and this sort of came in when we asked about the AI being more intelligent than the HI. So he said, I would say let machines do all the work. It's good for people to be free, spend more time on creative aspects, community, as well as personal growth endeavors. That was all about the technology startup review. So the other domain that we explored was edtech, and since the past couple of years, it hasn't been in the best light. But we had an interesting conversation with Shivam, the CEO of Pustak Hash Stack, and he described different ways on how his platform is what it is today, and that included, of course, the entire founder journey of building. A YouTube channel, then going on to build a platform. So, and also navigating the Indian market space and the US market space. So, there was a lot of perspective around cross geographical as well as cross platform integration of a principle which was simple around teaching the right content to people in the right way and more engaging way, whether it was the YouTube platform, whether their own platform in schools, or whether it was a setup that was done for on a district basis for governments. So let's see how I can summarize it best for you. One of the books that he recommended was Hard Things About Hard Things, and I think every founder who is looking to go through a journey of solving hard problems should look at that book. Along with that, he recommended certain platforms that are his favorite to use as a founder, and one is Notion, which is of course a favorite amongst many founders and tech enthusiasts of today. A tool called Workplace by Facebook that he recommended was a good mix of Teams, Slack, and he says it's a lesser known tool, but it can be very helpful when it comes to running a company. Apart from that, one of the platforms he found to be truly transformational for education is YouTube, because it really popularized the MOOC concept when it comes to delivering education in an open course learning format, right? So that is one. And then, while he was creating this inventive way of teaching through YouTube, he then went on to create an army of teachers. And I think it is very easy to parallel it with creating a scalable infrastructure in whatever you're building. So instead of one person delivering content, they had an army of teachers delivering that content through a templatized format. And it really emphasizes on the importance of being able to create those templates that can be replicable and scalable across different TGs, different geographies, and different amount of population that is there going to consume your product as a whole, and it could be any product, right? So he also emphasized on data driven insights, and because that is something that the teachers were not able to analyze in a classroom setting. So the importance of giving that template to the teachers to teach content in an engaging way, along with insights like where is the engagement drop happening, what kind of demographic of audience is the teacher losing, all of those insights really helped their army of teachers be as effective as the founding teachers of Pew Stack were. And so that is about the success of the YouTube channel. He went around describing the flipped classroom approach as a very effective approach to teaching, which is, you give certain free learning lectures to the students and you tell them to come prepared for the next class. And he says that that is more applicable to the US based instruction methodology right now, but slowly the schools in India are also adopting that kind of a methodology. So going forward, to make offline education or even online education effective, flipped classroom approach was one of his recommended approaches. And then of course he touched upon gamification as well. So according to him, gamification with badges or online virtual emojis and all of those things worked well till the third and fourth class of the kid. But later on in older kids, it is uncommon to see that work, and more common was more tangible incentives, whether it's t-shirts or physical certificates and all of that. So gamification really differed as the kids grew amongst different age groups. One of the other things that he emphasized on was the growth of the edtech sector right now as we see it. So first of all, edtech is a highly regulated sector. There are a lot of norms when it comes to the content that's published for education. And also right now is not the market where somebody can raise money on deck alone, having some revenue or a very novel idea of approaching something. So it's possibly difficult to recreate those numbers that edtech had created in 2020 and 2021 because of covid and work from home and education from home kind of an infrastructure. But there is a high propensity to pay because of the infrastructure in terms of the UPI coming into picture. But the sector still continues to see low average user revenue, and specifically when compared to 2020 and 2021. In terms of new ideas, the founders who are wanting to break into edtech right now can look at education as an ecosystem, in a whole. So teaching content is only one core aspect of it that PewStack chose to work on, but there are other aspects to it. Like, it could be teacher hiring, it could be content creation, it could be setting up the studios, it could be financing, it could be preparing the students for the job market, and so on. And there could be many offline education opportunities as well. For example, setting up canteens that provide nutritional food that can be correlated to the brain health of the kids growing up. So they could be very novel ideas when it comes to the education space as a whole. And some certain insights that he shared about being a founder. It's a common perception to think of founders as bold risk takers, but he was completely from the opposite side of things. So he shared that he was not a risk taker. He had a job at GoDaddy while he worked on this idea, and he only left his job when he had raised a 5 million check. So he balanced his risk in a way so that he's doing it in the least risky way possible. So that is one. The other thing is he feels that luck and the place played a big role in shaping the idea of PewStack in terms of the platform it is, specifically in the B2G sector in US. Because he talked about his networking dinner in Silicon Valley with amazing partners, and they sort of recommending him the next steps and all of that. So one of the key things he told was that in our country sometimes we are told not to share ideas, that somebody will steal them. But that's not the case. He said that he was very open about sharing his ideas, and um, that really helped him get feedback and new motivation for his platform. Also, when somebody goes into building products, they feel that's all they will be doing. But once you become a CEO, the role actually differs a lot. A lot of your day is spent doing GST filings and things that you might not be excited about while you get started. So that's something one should keep in mind. But yeah, that's about Shivam from PewStack. Let's dive into this other podcast that we did about how software can solve real problems around us, and that was given by Aayush Kumar, who is a senior software engineer with Google for over a decade now. And some of the recommendations that he gave during his podcast was using Google Docs, which is a very good way to collaborate over different documents with your team. Apart from that, he recommended the Pixel phone over the other contemporary, specifically for its camera quality. And then, as far as new technology is concerned in AI, a combination of Gemini, GPT, and Claude is what he recommended for anybody to get started. He loves working at Google, and few of the reasons that he mentioned that I feel that our audience should know is that he feels that he's part of a group where there are the smartest people, nicest, they share knowledge, and also they build products that touch so many lives around them. He also emphasized on, having the spirit of being a noogler, which means somebody who's new to Google, on for like over a decade now, and sort of saying, okay, like, it's so important to keep learning and be open to learning, just as if you are new to Google. Along with that, he mentioned certain projects that he was super proud of. For example, Google Assistant, which was like a 0 to 1 project within Google. It was a great entrepreneurship journey for him, and that opportunity really shaped up how he looked at products which are scaled globally within a company like Google. He also worked on a project which was a 20% project. So Google has this concept of working one day in a week on a project that's non-core to your assigned project. And so he had worked on different assistants during that 20% project during the very initial days of him at Google. And then he emphasized on sort of how one can actually go about building solutions for the global audience. And one of the factors he said that one can look at is really zooming in to specific country and region and seeing what problems people from that region have. So he was of the opinion that, once you build something for problems, down there, you those solutions can actually be scaled to other geographies as well. So if you see, a lot of solutions today that we're using from Google were built for US, but then they did apply to other geographies as well. So that was his methodology on how to build solutions for the global audience. He went to CMU, and a few of the things that he felt that, he learned at a university like Carnegie Mellon was learning creative problem solving, how to think out of the box, how to sort of unlearn things, relearn things, how to be amongst the best people, best cutting edge technology around them with the best tools and labs. So I think that ecosystem itself provided a lot of foundational ground to what he is today. Apart from that, he had great mentors who emphasized on the aspect of enjoying what you do, and that he inculcated very thoroughly in his team building process. So he make sure that whenever he hires somebody for the team, he's putting them on something that they really enjoy to do. So according to him, businesses need to start thinking of how they can adopt Gen AI into their business processes, which includes, probably automating the customer service agents. It's more of a augmentation rather than replacement, as per him. And he feels that, once the processes are efficient, you can really compete with your contemporaries out there. In terms of the outsourcing companies, we know that, with so many things getting automated, the big question is, how can companies specifically in India uh, still have their edge, so he says that adapting the new technology and making sure it's a combination of human touch and technology, which is what the company is looking out for, they can really compete in the international market. And apart from that, building certain tools for the employees to enable them or make them AI enabled is something that companies should be looking at as well. He touched on a very important aspect of cyber addiction as well. We know that it is a concern for individuals across the world in today's time. So companies like Meta, their core metric is the time that is spent on their platform, and that makes it difficult for something like cyber addiction to not happen. But companies like Google, they focus more on, okay, like, even if you're spending time on the platform, so are you feeling guilty about it, and they focus on that aspect of metric more than, the amount of time that's spent. So that's where companies like Google are sort of making sure that cyber addiction is, something that they're looking out for. In terms of certain fun facts, he actually told us that Quidditch is a real game. I mean, it's not just in Harry Potter; it's a real game, and there's a World Cup for it. He loves cricket, and he felt that, there could be certain technology for academy training for cricket, just like it is for golf. And also he felt that chai, chai, we love chai in India, and our speaker loved that as well. And he felt that chai should be available just like coffee is with Starbucks all across the world. So that's another area of solution, probably, which technology can help with or not, but something that you would like to see in the world. Any people from our audience who are wanting to become technologists or get into technology, some of the critical aspects people should be focusing on while getting into technology is developing a sense of critical thinking, wanting to solve problems around them, thinking of out of the box solutions for those problems, and then collaborating with people around them. So those are the key aspects when it comes to becoming a technologist who is solving real world problems and being out there building for the globe. And so that's about this informative podcast that we have had on how software can solve real world problems.